Please, ma'am, can you read this letter? It's very, very important.
The trembling voice of the 8-year-old boy echoed through the quiet lobby of the five-star hotel, his small fingers clutching a crumpled envelope as if it were his most precious treasure. Eleanor Vance stopped abruptly in the middle of the marble hallway, his Louboutin heels making a sharp noise against the floor. The 45-year-old businesswoman, owner of one of the largest hotel chains in the country, looked with disdain at the child who had interrupted her perfectly planned morning. The girl was clearly different. Her brown eyes did not focus on anything specific, moving slowly without direction, the white cane in her left hand. And the way she carefully felt her way through the air revealed her visual impairment. Her black skin contrasted sharply with the pristine, predominantly white surroundings of the Grand Plaza Hotel. How did this child get in here? Eleanor muttered to Marcus, his personal assistant, who immediately pulled out his phone to call security. "Please," insisted the girl, her voice breaking slightly. "My grandmother said it was urgent. She said you would want to read this." Eleanor laughed sarcastically. "Sweetheart, I don't have time for childish games. Marcus, remove her from here immediately." But something in the child's determination made Eleanor hesitate for a moment. The girl showed no fear or intimidation. On the contrary, there was a strange serenity in her demeanor, as if she knew something that no one else knew. "My name is Iris," the girl said calmly, "and the letter is about him and my grandmother. About what happened 30 years ago." Eleanor felt her blood run cold. 30 years? No one should know about that. No one who was still alive, at least. What nonsense is this? Eleanor forced a nervous laugh. "I don't know his grandmother, young lady. You're obviously confused." Iris tilted her head slightly, an almost imperceptible smile appearing on her lips. "Do you know Cora Evans? Are you sure?" The name hit Eleanor like a punch in the stomach. Cora Evans, a woman she had sworn to forget. A woman whose secret she had carried for 3 decades. "Marcus," Eleanor whispered, her voice losing all of her previous arrogance. "Leave us alone." "But Mrs. Vance now." As Marcus reluctantly backed away, Eleanor knelt in front of Iris, her hands trembling imperceptibly. How do you know that name?" "Because Cora Evans was his grandmother. And before she died last week, she told me a very interesting story about a 15-year-old girl named Lian Wei, whom he helped a long time ago." Lian Wei, his birth name. The name she had buried along with her Asian identity when she decided that being white would be more profitable in business. The letter in Iris's hand seemed to pulsate with secrets that could destroy everything Eleanor had built. Her company, her reputation, her years of carefully crafted lies. What did your grandmother write in this letter?" Eleanor asked, her voice almost inaudible. Iris smiled again, this time with a wisdom that seemed impossible in an 8-year-old. Her grandmother, Cora always said that the truth has a funny way of coming out when we least expect it, especially when someone has spent their whole life pretending to be something they're not. Eleanor looked around the luxurious lobby, noticing for the first time how many of her employees and guests were discreetly watching him, all of them witnesses to his most vulnerable moment in decades. "Please," Eleanor whispered, reaching out with a trembling hand. "Give me the letter." But Iris took a step back, holding the envelope close to her chest. "First, you have to promise me something. You have to promise that you'll read every word out loud right here in front of all these people." Eleanor felt the floor disappear beneath her feet. 30 years of secrets were about to be exposed by a blind girl who seemed to see much more than any adult around him. What no one realized was that while Eleanor trembled with fear, Iris held not only a letter, but the power to completely rewrite the history of 2 families. If this story of family secrets and delayed justice has piqued her curiosity, be sure to subscribe to the channel, because what Cora Evans revealed in that letter will make her question everything she thinks she knows about identity, privilege, and the lies we tell ourselves. Eleanor looked nervously around the lobby, calculating how many people might be listening to this conversation. The Grand Plaza was in its morning rush hour. Executives drinking coffee, tourists checking out, employees going about their daily tasks. All the people she needed to impress to keep her empire running. "Let's go to his office," Eleanor whispered urgently. "Not here, not like this." Iris tilted her head, her expression serene, almost disturbing for a child. "Grandma, Cora told me that you always preferred to settle things away from the eyes of others. She said you were ashamed of the truth." "I'm not ashamed of anything," Eleanor replied sharply, but her voice betrayed his nervousness. "I just believe in privacy. Some conversations aren't for everyone to hear. Funny, Iris murmured, running her hand over the smooth surface of the marble counter. Grandma Cora always said that the truth only hurts when you've spent too long running away from her. Eleanor felt a pang of anger mixed with fear. Who did this child think he was? And how had Cora Evans dared to involve a little girl in matters that should have been buried forever? Listen here, young lady, Eleanor said, regaining some of her usual arrogance. I don't know what kind of stories are told you, but I am Eleanor Vance. I built this empire from the ground up. I employ thousands of people. I contribute millions in taxes to this city. I will not be blackmailed by a child who can't even see me properly. Iris's smile widened, and for the first time since she had entered the hotel, she looked genuinely amused. You think he can't see? Interesting. Grandma Cora told me about that, too. About what? Eleanor asked, despite herself. About how you always underestimated people who looked different. How you thought being blind meant being dumb. How you thought changing from Leon Way to Eleanor Vance would change who he really is inside. Eleanor felt the blood drain from her face. Leon Way, the name she had legally changed at 18 when she decided that an Asian businesswoman would face more obstacles than one with an Anglo-Saxon surname. The strategy had worked perfectly until now. I don't know where you got this information, but it's completely wrong. Eleanor lied, her voice sounding false even to herself. Iris laughed, a crystalline sound that echoed through the marble lobby. Would you like to know what else Grandma Cora told me? She said that when you were 15, you lived in a tiny apartment with her immigrant mother. She said that her mother worked as a cleaning lady at 3 different jobs to pay the rent. Eleanor clenched her fists. This information was impossible. Her mother had died 10 years ago, taking these secrets with her, or at least that's what she thought. My mother was never a cleaning lady, Eleanor said stiffly. She had his own business. Cleaning offices at night, Iris corrected gently, including the office of the law firm where Cora Evans worked as a legal secretary. Eleanor's world began to crumble. Cora Evans, legal secretary. 30 years ago, the pieces of a puzzle that she had tried to forget began to fit together in a terrifying way. Impossible, Eleanor murmured. Cora Evans was just a black woman that no one took seriously. Iris finished the sentence. A woman who worked in the same building her mother cleaned. A woman who witnessed something that could have destroyed her life before she even began. Eleanor felt her legs give way. She remembered Cora Evans, now vaguely like a shadow from a nightmare she had tried to forget. The black woman who worked late at the office when her mother cleaned the upper floors. The woman who had been kind to a frightened Asian teenager who sometimes showed up to help her mother on weekends. What did he see? Eleanor asked, her voice almost inaudible. Iris held the letter more tightly against her chest. Grandma Cora saw a lot back then. She saw how the lawyers treated her mother. She saw how they talked about immigrants when they thought no one was listening. And she saw something else, something you did when you thought no one was looking. I don't know what you're talking about, Eleanor lied desperately. Do you remember Mr. Harrington, the senior partner at the firm? Iris asked casually, as if she were commenting on the weather. Eleanor felt her heart stop. Mr. Harrington, the man who had tried to sexually abuse her when she was 15 during one of the nights she was helping her mother clean the office. The man she had. I can see from your expression that you remember, Iris observed. Cora Evans saw everything that night. Miss Vance. She saw what Mr. Harrington tried to do, and she saw what you did to defend yourself. Eleanor was shaking now. 30 years ago, she had pushed Mr. Harrington away to defend herself, and he had hit his head on the corner of the desk. He had been knocked unconscious. She had panicked, thinking she had killed him. She had run away and never knew what happened to him. He died, Eleanor asked, her voice breaking. No, Iris said gently, but he had a serious concussion, and when he woke up, he didn't remember what had happened. Cora Evans was the one who found him and called the ambulance. Eleanor looked at the girl with a mixture of relief and terror, and she never said anything. She said that a 15-year-old girl shouldn't have her life ruined for having to defend herself from a 45-year-old man. So she cleaned up the evidence, rearranged the scene, and told the police that Mr. Harrington had slipped on his own. Because Grandma Cora believed in justice, Iris replied. Because she knew that sometimes good people do difficult things to survive. And because she hoped that one day when you had power, you would use that power to help other people who were going through what you went through. She hoped that he would use that power to help other people who were going through what you went through. Eleanor looked around his luxurious hotel, thinking about all the decisions she had made over the years. How many times had he chosen profit over compassion? How many times had he ignored employees who looked like her mother or like the frightened girl she had once been? "What does Cora Evans want from me?" Eleanor asked, already dreading the answer. Iris smiled again, but this time there was no amusement in her expression. It was the smile of someone who knew he was about to change everything. "Grandma Cora doesn't want anything from you, Ms. Vance. She's dead. But I want something." "What? Justice?" Iris said simply. "For all the people you trampled on your way to the top. For all the employees you fired to cut costs while increasing his own bonuses. For all the families who lost their homes when you raised the rents on his apartment buildings." Eleanor felt the ground shifting beneath his feet. You're just a child. How could you know about these things?" "I'm blind, Mr. Vance, not deaf," Iris replied with an irony that sounded strange coming from an 8-year-old. "And Grandma Cora taught me that when you can't see people, you learn to really hear them." The letter in Iris's hand seemed to radiate power. Eleanor realized that her carefully constructed life, her buried secrets, and her immaculate reputation were all in the hands of a girl he had underestimated from the very beginning. What Eleanor didn't know was that while she was trying to process the revelations about Cora Evans, Iris was just getting started. The letter she held contained much more than memories of an incident from 30 years ago. It contained documents that could dismantle every aspect of the life that Eleanor had built on lies and convenient forgetfulness. Eleanor tried to regain her composure, adjusting her blazer, as if that could restore the control she felt, slipping through her fingers. "Listen here, young lady. I don't know what kind of game you're trying to play, but I have lawyers. I have resources. I can make her life very difficult." Iris tilted her head, his smile widening. "Do you think I came here alone? That an 8-year-old blind girl crossed the city and walked into a 5-star hotel without help?" The question hit Eleanor like a slap of reality. Of course, the girl hadn't gotten there on her own. But who could have orchestrated this? "Who brought you here?" Eleanor asked, her voice losing some of her previous arrogance. "A friend of Grandma Cora's," Iris replied casually. "Dr. Reed, the civil rights lawyer who had represented several families evicted by her real estate developments. The man who had tried to sue her multiple times for housing discrimination." "Impossible," Eleanor whispered. "Reed hates everything I stand for." "He doesn't hate her, Mrs. Vance," Iris corrected gently. "He hates what she's become. There's a difference." Eleanor looked frantically around the lobby, searching for any sign of Reed's presence. The hotel continued her normal routine, but now every guest, every employee seemed like a potential threat. "Is Dr. Reed here?" Eleanor asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "He doesn't need to be," Iris replied, waving the letter slightly. "Everything you need is in here. And also," she reached into the small pocket of her dress, pulling out an object that made Eleanor recoil instinctively. It was a tiny but perfectly functional digital recorder. "Have you been recording our entire conversation?" Eleanor asked, her voice rising an octave. "Grandmother Cora always said that the truth has power when other people can hear it," Iris explained as if she were talking about the weather, "especially when the person being recorded doesn't know they're being recorded." Eleanor felt her legs go weak. Every arrogant word, every involuntary admission, every moment of vulnerability from the last 20 minutes was digitally documented. "That's illegal," Eleanor said desperately. "You can't record me without consent." "I can when I'm protecting myself," Iris replied calmly. "A blind girl has a right to protect herself from adults who might want to hurt her, doesn't he?" Eleanor realized she had fallen into a carefully planned trap. Iris wasn't just a child with a letter. She was part of something much bigger, much more organized. "What do you want?" Eleanor asked, her voice almost inaudible. "Dr. Reed wants justice for the 347 families who lost their homes when you raised rents by 300% over the last 5 years," Iris said, her voice maintaining that eerily calm tone. "He wants compensation for the 89 employees who were laid off on Christmas Eve for cost optimization while she gave herself a $12 million bonus. And Iris continued, I want you, his lady, to read this letter aloud here in front of all these people. I want them to know who he really is." "Never," Eleanor said, trying to regain some authority. "I will never humiliate myself like that." Iris sighed as if she were a teacher dealing with a stubborn student. "You have a choice. Ms. Vance, you can read the letter here now in front of these few people, or you can explain her contents tomorrow." morning when copies are delivered to every newspaper, every television station, and every news site in the city. "You're blackmailing me," Eleanor said, her voice trembling with anger and fear. "No, ma'am," Iris corrected gently. "I'm offering you the option to tell your own story before others tell it for you. Grandma Cora always said it's better to be honest by choice than by necessity." Eleanor looked around the lobby again, noticing that more people had stopped to watch the strange conversation between the city's most powerful businesswoman and a blind girl with a letter. Some employees whispered among themselves. Others had discreetly begun filming with their phones. "If I read this letter," Eleanor said slowly, "what guarantees that you won't continue to pursue him?" Iris smiled for the first time with genuine joy. "You don't understand yet, do you? We're not persecuting you, Mr. Vance. We're freeing you." "Freeing?" "Freeing you from the prison he's built for himself," Iris explained patiently. "From the lie of being Eleanor Vance when you are really Leon Way. From the weight of carrying secrets that make you afraid to look in the mirror." Every morning, Eleanor felt tears burning in her eyes. When was the last time someone had seen her? Really seen her through all the layers of lies and constructs she had built around herself. "Cora Evans saved you 30 years ago," Iris continued, her voice now laden with a compassion that seemed impossible in someone so young. "She saved a scared little girl who just wanted to survive. But somewhere along the way, you forgot that little girl. You forgot that other people are scared too, that they just want to survive too." "I haven't forgotten," Eleanor whispered, surprising herself with her own honesty. "Then prove it," Iris said simply, holding out the letter. "Prove to that 15-year-old girl who still exists inside her that she hasn't become exactly the kind of person who used to hurt her." Eleanor reached out, her fingers trembling as they brushed against the envelope that had become the center of her universe. For a moment it seemed she might actually take it, but then her phone rang. It was Marcus, his assistant. "Ms. Vance, forgive the interruption, but we have a situation. Reporters are arriving. Someone called the press saying there's an important story happening in the lobby." Eleanor looked at Iris, who maintained that serene smile that had become simultaneously comforting and terrifying. "You still have a choice," Iris said softly. "You can tell her story, or you can let others tell it for her. But either way, Miss Leon Way, his story is going to be told today." For the first time in 3 decades, Eleanor realized she had no control over what would happen next. The blind girl in front of her had orchestrated a perfect checkmate, and every move Eleanor made would only bring her closer to the only possible outcome: the truth. What Eleanor couldn't see, because she was too focused on her own survival, was that Iris wasn't just holding a letter from Cora Evans. She was holding the key to freeing not only Eleanor from her lies, but dozens of other people from the consequences of those lies. And as the reporters approached the hotel, one question remained unanswered. Would Eleanor have the courage to use that key, or would she try to break the lock? Eleanor watched the reporters approaching through the glass doors of the lobby, her cameras already being set up, microphones being tested. For the first time in decades, she had no control over the narrative that was about to be told. "The choice is made," Iris said softly, putting the recorder back in her pocket. "The reporters are here because I called him an hour ago. I told him Eleanor." Vance was finally ready to tell the truth about who she really is. You're a child," Eleanor whispered desperately. "How could you have orchestrated all this?" "Grandma Cora taught me that size has nothing to do with intelligence," Iris replied with that unsettling serenity, "and that sometimes the most powerful people are the easiest to defeat because they're so used to being feared that they forget to fear others." The first reporter had crossed the lobby and was approaching quickly. Eleanor recognized Michael Torres from Channel 7 News, the same investigative journalist who had exposed 3 corporate scandals in the last year. Ms. Vance Torres called her. "Camera crew already in position. We received a call about a story involving your true identity and questionable business practices. Can you comment?" Eleanor felt panic rising in her throat. "No comment. This is private property." "Actually," Iris interrupted, her clear voice echoing through the lobby, "a hotel lobby is considered public space for journalistic purposes. Dr. Reed explained that to him." Torres turned to Iris, noticing the letter in her hands. "And he is Iris Evans," she replied, with a dignity impressive for an 8-year-old granddaughter of Cora Evans, who worked as a legal secretary for 30 years and saved Ms. Vance's life when she was a teenager. This is ridiculous, Eleanor said, her voice rising an octave. I don't know what this child is talking about. Iris smiled and pulled the tape recorder out of her pocket again. Can I play the recording where you admit to being Leon Wei? The part where you confirmed the incident with Mr. Harrington 30 years ago? Or would you prefer that I read Grandma Cora's letter first? Eleanor felt her legs buckle. In a matter of minutes, her entire carefully constructed life would be demolished in front of cameras, broadcasting everything live. Iris, please, Eleanor begged, completely abandoning her composure. You're just a child. You don't understand the consequences of what you're doing. I understand perfectly, Iris replied calmly. I understand that you fired 89 employees on Christmas Eve. I understand that you raised rents by 300%, forcing 347 families to lose their homes. I understand that you gave yourself a $12 million bonus while cutting employee health benefits. Torres was frantically taking notes, her cameras capturing every word. Other journalists had arrived, forming a semicircle around Eleanor and Iris. But most importantly, Iris continued, her voice gaining a strength that silenced the entire lobby. I understand that Grandma Cora saved a frightened 15-year-old girl 30 years ago, hoping that when that girl grew up and had power, she would use that power to help other frightened people. Eleanor was visibly shaking now. Cora Evans is dead. She can't prove anything, said a deep voice from behind the cameras. No, but he can, said a deep voice from behind the cameras. Dr. Samuel. Reed emerged from the crowd of journalists, carrying a worn leather briefcase and wearing a simple suit that contrasted with the glitz of the surroundings. At 65, the civil rights lawyer had the bearing of someone who had spent decades fighting for justice. Dr. Reed, Eleanor whispered, terror finally taking hold of her expression. Leon, he said simply, then turned to the cameras. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, my name is Samuel Reed. For 30 years, I have represented low-income families against corporations that abuse their power. He opened his briefcase, pulling out a stack of documents. I have here lease agreements, financial records, internal emails, and depositions from 127 former Vance Enterprises employees documenting a systematic pattern of exploitation, discrimination, and abuse of power. Every marble surface, every crystal chandelier, every luxurious detail had been paid for with a misery of people who looked like she once had. Eleanor began, but her voice failed her. Iris stepped closer, holding out the letter one last time. You can still choose to tell your own story. Ms. Wei, you can choose to be the brave girl Grandma Cora saved instead of the cruel woman you've become. Eleanor looked at the letter, then at the cameras, then at Iris's serene face. For a moment, it seemed that she might actually find the courage to face the truth. Instead, she turned and tried to run away, but there was nowhere to go. The lobby was surrounded by journalists, staff, and guests, all with phones recording every second of her public humiliation. Running away won't work this time, Ms. Wei Reed said calmly. The 347 families who lost their homes deserve answers. The 89 employees fired on Christmas Eve deserve answers. And Cora Evans, who spent the last years of his life wondering if he had done the right thing by saving her, deserves to know if her compassion was wasted. Eleanor stood in the middle of the lobby, surrounded by cameras and microphones, finally understanding that an 8-year-old blind girl had orchestrated her complete defeat. How was all she could whisper. Iris smiled one last time, but now it was the smile of someone who had learned that justice sometimes needs to be served by small hands. Grandma Cora always said that the powerful only see what they want to see. You saw a blind, defenseless girl. You never imagined you could be looking at someone who had spent years preparing for this moment. As the cameras continued to roll and questions rained down from all sides, Leon Wei, because that was his real name after all, realized that she had underestimated not only Iris, but the power of memory, justice, and truth, which always finds a way to come to light. What Eleanor couldn't see yet, because she was too focused on her own ruin, was that this public exposure would only be the first domino to fall. Dr. Reed had spent months preparing legal proceedings that would turn her humiliation into devastating financial consequences. And Iris still held secrets that would ensure that no amount of money or influence could save her from what was to come. 6 months later, Leon Wei was bankrupt and socially destroyed. His hotels were sold to pay compensation to the 347 evicted families. The empire built on lies collapsed in weeks. Iris, now 9, visited the community center that Dr. Reed had opened with part of the Compensation money. Grandma Cora always said that the truth sets everyone free, she murmured, touching the piano donated by one of Eleanor's former hotels. Dr. Reed smiled, watching dozens of children from the community having access to free education. His grandmother saved a 15-year-old girl 30 years ago, hoping she would help others. It ended up being he who fulfilled that promise. Lianwei now worked as a cleaner, just like her mother had done decades ago. The irony did not go unnoticed. True revenge is not destroying those who hurt us, but using that pain to build something greater. Iris proved that justice has no age and that sometimes the smallest warriors carry the most powerful victories. If it is his belief that truth always wins, subscribe to the channel for more stories that prove that the greatest force in the world is still the courage of a person determined to do what is right.